Hi, everybody. What's happening? Um, just kind of getting the lighting dialed in and some of my stuff in here. So I haven't had time to set up the studio yet. So we're still in temporary gigs. And sorry for the mute there for starters. Welcome one and all. I hope you're all doing well. And we're back. Now we're at 5-5. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, my friends, welcome back. The last show I did was a week ago, and much has happened in a week, certainly in my life and also in the world. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and thanks for being here tonight. Please share this out. Please like it, so that we can, get some good flow with the show and get it out to be seen by more people. So please, at the very least, just give a thumbs up when you come into Rumble, to Twitter, to D Live, to YouTube, and I'm really looking forward to getting back on track with you all since I've been gone for a week. So I want to share a couple stories about my trip here, and also what's going on in New York and so forth. So let me just say hello to some of you. Motor Yoder, glad you're back, Dave. Thank you. Phil Dance, thank you, my brother. Good stuff. Yeah, here's the thing. We kicked the tires on some colleges and just showed, well, let me first start by saying that the first visit was with my alma mater. And, that was wonderful to be able to share my alma mater with my daughter and and her mama. And just really, it was wonderful because I also scheduled a meeting with the athletic director, who's a friend of mine, and we did the campus tour. Beautiful campus. They've spent a lot of money on that campus since I was there. My friend made a joke that we used to have a couple of ladies just slopping some potatoes onto our plate onto our tray in college. Now they've got next level. They've got an agreement with a third party, and it's just so professional, like the food and the facilities. So it was a beautiful tour, and then we went to see the athletic director, Steve Napolillo, and it was just a beautiful, like, as soon as we, big hug when I saw him. And so, he sized us up, hey, what size are you? What size are you? What size are you? And it got us all gear, really nice, beautiful, like Providence College gear. I'll wear it on the show maybe this week, my jacket. And then, it was just amazing. And then he was just, connecting with my daughter. What do you want to do? What do you think of the school? And so forth and so on. And so, it was kind of like, listen, if this is really where you want to go, I'll forward it to the head of admissions and tell them, who you are and the whole bit. And then also I also reached out to the vice president of the college that I know, and I didn't get a chance to see him because he's ill, but he also said the same thing. So just to have that kind of support, that kind of like, listen, we want you here if you want to be here. And so, so that became her, second school, and so second favorite school. So at any rate, so that was all great, and just and then we went down through and I'll see if I can share some of those pictures with you, maybe tomorrow night or later in the week. Share some of the pictures of me in the what do you call it, in the kind of a little museum of Providence College basketball, because Providence College has a very storied tradition of basketball. they had, they've been to the NIT back in the 60s. That was when the NIT was the big tournament. And then went to the Final Four in 1973 with an amazing team. And then thank you, Maggie Girl, appreciate that. Thank you, Jingle, I appreciate you. And just really wonderful to just share with them, my history there at Providence, and my name's on the wall, and there's a video playing of that I'm interviewed in and things like that. So it's really wonderful. And so a trip to the Northeast, seeing old friends, connecting with old friends, then going to New York City, seeing some friends, seeing family. My niece is there, my brother-in-law, my nephew, his son, really able to connect with them. So it was really wonderful. And I did think, I did kind of hope that I could do some things, some videos from there with you, but I really was so dialed into family and unhooked from this part of the world that we focus on. And so thank you. And yeah, thank you, Ellen. I appreciate it. Yeah, so it was a great moment. Thank you all for that support, and so appreciate you. Very cool, very cool. And then being in New York City. So, New York City, certainly you can kind of feel the Muslim influence. I've felt it for a long time because back in the 90s, a lot of the cab drivers were Muslim, but it wasn't the same energy. So we got in a cab at this one point, and by the way, cheers everybody. I hope you're well, and I hope this show finds you well tonight. So thank you, Steve, Father Joe, I appreciate you. Also Dave Duke and John Shard, St. John's Rick Pitino have a date this Friday night at 7:10 Sweet 16. That will be awesome. Duke versus St. John's. Okay, very cool. And I didn't get to see Coach Pitino in New York because he was, off out of New York doing during the tournament. So yeah. So at any rate, there was this moment where we all got in a cab, and there was a Muslim driver, and he had Muslim prayers playing. And when you get in a cab in New York, and this goes back, I've been there, off and on for 6 years in the 90s, and then and my buddy lives in New York, so we get in a cab, and I said, "Hey, do you mind changing the station?" And he didn't, and his tip showed it as well, that we weren't, but it's kind of like you say, "Hey, listen, can we have some quiet, or can you change the station, or could you make it a little cooler?" You're paying, 20 some dollars to go, couple handful of blocks, and it's kind of your call, right? So that was the kind of the vibe. It's like they don't even care anymore. And I even said, coming out of that, it's like, listen, we wouldn't appreciate it if somebody was, playing some, radio station, and it was, Jesus, 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 right? I mean, like, we want to talk. We're not don't have an agenda. So I certainly don't want to listen to a Muslim prayer when I'm in a cab. And it's not because I don't respect a Muslim's, religion. It's that it's not about that. This is, a ride. So thank you, Sabina. Appreciate that. So at any rate, there was that element, and there's this kind of like, we're shoving it down your throat kind of feeling. And that's not fun at all. Like that's not something that I welcome with anything, and it doesn't even matter the message. And so so it's really, so it's that kind of stuff that's still going on in New York, and certainly a lot of influence there that that I don't care to be a part of. And so very much a concern over that. So let me play. I want to play a couple things for you. This thing I want to play for you I thought was very interesting. We talked about President Trump in the white hat when he was given that about a week ago, and I just want to play this breakdown done by L. Todd Wood and Bill Quinn. Let me play this for you.
How many times?
And by the way, I don't know either of these guys, but
in the past weeks and months have we said you need to be watching the details, and especially when Trump is involved personally, you need to listen to exactly what he says. You need to look exactly at the settings in which he says certain things, and look at what else is included. We've reported in past weeks about posts by Dan Scavino and others, the Department of War, everybody is bringing out things that we think you need to get your eyeballs on. Here's the latest. This is an award, a ceremony, if you will, by the I believe it's the Rodeo Association, or both the Men's and Women's Rodeo Association. They showed up to give President Trump an award, and they gave him a white cowboy hat, and they're all wearing white cowboy hats. Isn't that nice? And 107 here comments here. I've always loved the white cowboy hats, and our great president loves them too. Well, I bet he does. And let's take a look at the next piece here. This is the actual setting in which he gets this this hat. Bear with me for a second. I want to pull this up, and I'm going to want you to watch it carefully. Bear with me. And here we go.
This is number 1 of 250. Got the Constitution in there.
Yeah.
In the liner.
The Constitution
We'll put that in the museum. Right?
is in the liner. That's amazing.
Did you hear that? The hat is adorned with, apparently it has gold and apparently some diamond trim. But in the inside of the hat is the preamble to the Constitution printed in the hat. Fascinating. The company that's giving it to him is Resistol. You can see that there. And this is a commemoration of, in part, the 250th anniversary of the country. Look at the setting. We're going to come back to this in just a minute. But look at the setting on the desk. Okay? You see things? All right. Let's go to something else, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. Turns out that Trump is not the only one to have been given such a white hat. And we're going to show this, and then we'll tell you when this occurred.
Mr. President, we know that you don't wear a hat. We couldn't let you leave Fort Worth without providing you with some protection against the rain.
I'll put it on in the White House on Monday. If you'll come up there, you'll have a chance to see it there.
And
When was that? That was the morning of November 22nd, 1963, in Fort Worth at a breakfast just before he climbed in the limousine to go over to Dallas, where he was assassinated. So that's interesting enough. Now go back to this that I showed you a minute ago.
The flag.
Look on the desk. What's on the front corner of the desk? Well, that is this. The White House, a historic guide. Since 1962, the celebrated spaces and rich history of the White House have been portrayed for the public in this continually upgraded guidebook. There it is on the front corner of his desk.
I think it's your size.
Who started the guidebook? Jacqueline Kennedy. Coincidence? Maybe, but it's a pretty slim maybe. So what are we saying? We won't know until we know. But clearly there's a bit more here than it easily meets the eye. And again, we recommend you consider things. Now it happens to be not in this picture, but it is in the film of him getting the hat given to him. And it has the preamble to the Constitution inside the hat. Amazing times. All right.
We're constantly getting comms, and we need to pay attention to them. And because the comms are very, very interesting and very much for those who are paying attention to the comms. And when you understand that, without question, President Trump is giving us many, many comms, then it becomes that much more important for us to, pay attention to us, because he's telling us things as we go along that we need to be paying attention to, right? Now, I'm going to shift gears with you because Furry Grizzly asked me this question, and I do have that, and I want to share that with you. And this is the Mike Eden video that was just a couple of days ago. And this is something we know, but this is a guy who was the ex-Pfizer executive who is speaking. So when he speaks, we really should pay attention because he knows what's really going on. So let me play this little video for you.
If you followed me, you'll know I over 30 years in research in the pharmaceutical industry and biotech. I trained in toxicology, and I worked with colleagues designing experimental molecules that we hoped would become medicines. That gives me the credentials to stand, as it were, in the shoes of the designers of these vaccines and answer the question, what were you thinking when you made these design decisions? Now, you can go and watch any of my interviews, but I'll cut to the chase. And you may not believe it, but I am sure, not slightly, but sure, these materials were designed intentionally to harm, maim, and kill, and to reduce human fertility. That is my verdict, and I can stand it up. I will be in court, Supreme Court in Costa Rica very shortly, and I'll be using exactly this argument, but I will give the detail. That's the first point. So don't take these injectables. Don't take the next lot either. They will also be designed to harm you. All mRNA-based materials are dangerous. Don't take them.
Right. So this we already know, but it's good to see more and more confirmation coming out about this that really does, vindicate us. So this is one of the things where if you have somebody in your family that took these vaccines or are okay with these vaccines or don't say anything negative about these vaccines, just say, hey, here's an ex-Pfizer.
If you followed me, you'll know I over 30
president who is telling you not to take them. Is that somebody that you think we should listen to? and just drop the video, right? And see if that helps, because we still need to awaken some people, and that is very important. Raven Swings, yeah, still observing and doing my absolute best not to absorb. And that is a very, that is a neurolinguistic programming trick as well. I know Kwesi Pete throws that out a lot, and it's very important, because what we're neurolinguistic program technique is that if you're in the heart of something, right, you're very emotional and you have a stake in the game and so forth. And so one way to pull your emotion out of that situation so that you can think more clearly is to act as a third-party observer of this event taking place. And so when we talk about observing, pull yourself out of it. Look at this event taking place as a third party, not involved, not engaged, and not emotionally pulled in any one direction or another. And so I recommend that little tool, or that little tip, in which you can really kind of observe as a third party in this in the situation. So I just shared that on my timeline, so you can find that video there. And by the way, my daughter won't be going to college in New York City, but it was still important to show her New York, and she's seen New York, but not anything like, we went from Pace University over to the Freedom Tower and the 9/11 Memorial, and I do have a little video to share with you about that. Let me see if it's loaded yet. And no, it's not loaded yet. I've got to load that up if I'm going to share that with you. Let me see here. Let me see if it did load. No, it looks like it. Yeah, it should have. Yeah, it did. Here, let me pull this up for you. Here it is. So, for those of you, let's face it, there's still some great history in New York City that is worth seeing and worth being a part of. But let me share this with you here. This is, if for those of you who haven't seen, in the footprint of the the Twin Towers, there has been they've replaced, and I wished that we had by the way, I wish that we had I wish they had just built the Twin Towers right back up the way they were. I don't think we should have changed the New York skyline at all. That's just me. And we should have done it much quicker. But this is really beautiful, and let me share this with you. Just the view of these amazing fountains that were created as a memorial. Here we go. And that's Freedom Tower. Got that, and then let me take this down. And then I just did this little video. We were talking about Rick Pitino earlier. He's coaching St. John's now. He was my coach at Providence, and as many of you know, I knew somebody that died that worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, and Howard Lutnick did not show up to work that morning at Cantor Fitzgerald as the head of Cantor Fitzgerald. And there's speculation that he had foreknowledge of it. We covered on the show that there was an app that the Jewish people were using, and they were communicating, "Don't go to work this morning." And of course, we saw in some of the files of the JFK that the CIA was concerned about not implicating Mossad. And I think we have some answers to some questions to be answered about Israel's involvement, certainly in the the Twin Towers going down. So let me just go to full screen here and share this with you. Enter full screen. There we go.
9/11 Memorial. Billy Minardi is the brother-in-law of my coach of Providence, Rick Pitino, who great guy, left behind, I believe, 2 children at the time, and his wife, and very tragic work for Cantor Fitzgerald. And I think we owe it to all of these people to have the truth about 9/11 revealed once and for all. Rest in peace, Bill.
So, we've got some explaining to do to the families, to the people that were involved there. So for me to be there, it was really odd because this narrative that is still being played, it's almost like going to Dealey Plaza and still having in my mind the brainwashing that they did to make us think that it was Lee Harvey Oswald, which we now know it was not him acting alone, and that he was indeed a patsy, which is why they killed him, why Ruby killed him. So that's a whole can of worms that we can open up, but it's kind of like going to Dealey Plaza and still having that story in your mind as fact. So it's very frustrating to go to, the World Trade Center memorial, and to know that so many people that are there still don't know the truth about what happened on that day. And we don't know the truth. We can speculate. We can say there were no planes, that it was controlled demolition. Many people that go there, the majority of people that go there, still don't know about Building 7 and how no planes hit Building 7, and that it collapsed because of some internal fires. But they pulled that, and we heard, Silverstein, actually say, pull it. So we have that on audio and video. And so, and that's what the 9/11 engineers for 9/11 Truth have been, screaming about for many, many years, to try to, bring the awareness of people to the fact that the truth has not been told us about this event. So I want to get you to a few other things. I want to give a quick Stephen Miller video to you here, just talking about all the benefits of President Donald Trump. Here we go.
has achieved something that if you had predicted it 15 months ago, people would have said it was impossible. If you had said 15 months ago that we would achieve the lowest national murder rate, not in 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40, but in the 125 years, nobody would have believed it possible. And President Trump did exactly that, and it is a miracle. Just think about this for a second. Under President Trump's leadership, the largest reduction in murders in American history, the largest reduction in violent crime in American history, the largest reduction in drug overdose deaths in American history, the largest reduction in fentanyl in American history, the largest reduction in illegal immigration in American history, and the largest number of criminals arrested, removed, or deported in American history, all done in 1 year. If I would just say this, if we had an honest media in this country, the statistics I just gave you would be 24/7 on the news. Nobody could have ever predicted such an achievement would be possible. The second thing.
So if we had an honest media, so President Trump's not the only one saying, calling it fake news. We have, J.D. Vance that has said it. We have Stephen Miller that's saying it. And what you're going to see, in my opinion, is more and more people, not just within the administration, but within Congress and within the public sphere, constantly calling out the mainstream media for the things that they're doing that are absolutely wrong. I wanted to share this event too, by the way. My family just got out of LaGuardia Airport about an hour before this event happened. And both pilots are dead. Dozens of passengers and 2 in the truck were injured. And I believe it's more than that. But this is the event that unfolded literally an hour after they flew out. And so this fire truck's going across the lane, and this plane is, I believe, landing and hits this fire truck, right? Now, what's also of import is that when they flew out, they spent an hour and a half in, and by the way, God rest the souls of those folks that were involved in that. But they had to go through an hour and a half wait at TSA. Now, the next morning, President Trump comes out about how he's going to send ICE into the airports to help out with the TSA. So let me take you to that post. And I've got a couple Trump posts I want to share with you. And so let me just get there. This was yesterday. And here we go. He's been busy, by the way, very, very busy with his posts on Truth Social. Okay. So he basically said on Monday, ICE, let me bring this up for you. Now, this was Monday, right? At 8 a.m. Okay. And I'm sorry, this was Sunday at 8 a.m. On Monday, ICE will be going to airports to help our wonderful TSA agents who have stayed on the job, despite the fact that the radical left Democrats who are only focused on protecting hardline criminals who have entered our country illegally are endangering the USA by holding back the money that was long ago agreed to with signed and sealed contracts and all. But watch, no matter how great a job ICE does, the lunatics leading the incompetent Dems will be highly critical of their work. They will do a fantastic job. The great Tom Homan is in charge, President DJT. Some people saw ICE at the airports. I did not see them. But by the time I flew out on Monday night, okay, I flew through TSA. Like there was no wait, no line at all. And they were all working, okay? So two things that President Trump does with this. One is he basically says if you're an illegal in this country, ICE is going to be at the airport, so you might not want to show up. And two is that excuse me, is that President Trump said that we're going to we're moving forward. Like we're going to bring the ICE in, and maybe ICE will end up replacing some of the TSA, because remember, TSA was created by the deep state to, and all the buildup so that they can control our travel more. And since TSA has been in control of our travel, people don't enjoy traveling. People don't enjoy having to take off their shoes, having to stand in that scanner, which I've never done, having to have their bags inspected, or if you opt out of the scanner, if you're on TSA pre, you don't have to go through the scanner. You can go through the metal detector and you can keep your shoes on. I have TSA pre because of the amount of time I travel. But the other thing is that it's just become really uncomfortable to fly. So if you opt out of the scanner, the body scanner, which I believe, causes cancer, and I believe that, you're in an X-ray machine every time you fly. So I do not recommend that. I've never recommended that to my audience to go through when they fly. And so you used to have to, when you opt out of that, you have to get a pat down. So basically you're either going through an X-ray machine or you're getting felt up. And so we did TSA pre, so my daughter wouldn't have to go through that experience every time, because I think it's just a violation of our Fourth Amendment right. It's not that I think that, it's absolutely true that violates our Fourth Amendment right to illegal search and seizure, because none of us have created a crime that would, allow federal government to, give us a pat down or assume that we were about to commit a crime. And so, so I think this might be also a transfer of power away from the TSA administration, and certainly a little bit more oversight. But it definitely made a difference in travel, in my opinion. Now, it might have taken, Monday night, they still had to go through an hour and a half. I'm sorry, Sunday night, they went through an hour and a half. Okay. But he was saying tomorrow, Monday, we're going to have ICE show up. And then by Monday, TSA was fully staffed. So those people are thinking, well, I don't want to be replaced. And so I think they showed up for work. And also, and then by the time I flew, we both flew Monday night. It was smooth sailing, both in Denver and in New York City. So, so at any rate, yes. And by the way, universities are part of the indoctrination, which is why she may not even go to, university as well. That's still an option, but we're giving her the option. We're showing her what should be missing. So, yeah. And I opt out even at hospitals. Polar Bear Paw says, so even going through the TSA, now they have a camera that takes your picture when you go through TSA. You can opt out of that as well. And that is when you give your passport, because I don't do real ID. So I travel with a passport. So when you give the passport, they say, okay, step in front and get your picture taken. And I just say, I opt out of that. Thank you. And so, so yeah, so this is, Yeah, I haven't flown and refused to fly since what's that, TVR? Not sure what you're saying there, but yeah, I still have to fly. I've got family all over, and so let's see. Yeah, so that that happened. But again, I think President Trump's actions immediately made an adjustment to that. Now, this is very interesting. Let's go back to how they've tried to take President Trump out of office. This is Hans Mahnke. This is him.
Has achieved something that if you had predicted
And
it 15 months ago, people would have said it was
pause that. There we go. And so he says the subpoena released this morning by Chuck Grassley of Iowa is in connection with the fraudulent Arctic frost investigation is absolutely staggering. It didn't just ask for Kash Patel's phone records. This is really remarkable. It asked for everything he did from 2020 to 2023. Just to name a few, they requested all usernames and screen names, every address and email, complete billing and payment details, including credit card and bank account numbers. Think about that. Credit card and bank account numbers of Kash Patel. Every device ID and a full log of every call, text, and voicemail showing who was contacted, when, and for how long. They also obtained all internet session data, including the exact IP addresses. So this wasn't just about who Kash called. It was basically a complete view of his entire life, mapping his daily routines, travel, relationships, finances, and even tracking the specific hardware he used. In short, they got a full digital shadow of his life. To have come through all this without so much as a scratch tells you just how clean he is. And this is the request, right? He had to turn over all of this, right? And that was lawfare against our president and against those in his cabinet and control in the first administration, right? So that's this is all coming out, and when you understand what a violation of privacy this is, then you realize, wow, they really did use lawfare. And now everyone's, of course, they're, talking about this new No Kings March. And, meanwhile, they're the fascists, right? And the Democrats are the ones that are behind, things like this. And George Soros, a Seattle man, this is from Andy No, a Seattle man who shot and killed an 8-month pregnant Korean American woman and nearly killed her husband when they were driving to work has been found not guilty by reason of insanity. Cordell Gooseby murdered Elena Kwan and her unborn baby in June 2023 when they were stopped at a red light. Prosecutors did not charge him for killing the baby due to concerns about protecting abortion in the liberal state. So think about this, right? They don't call it double murder because they're not calling the baby a human being. After hearing testimony from defense medical experts that Gooseby was insane at the time of the shootings, the prosecution agreed to have the case ended through the not guilty motion. Gooseby will be committed to an institution and regularly evaluated to see if he is fit to be released to the public. Well, guess what? It doesn't matter whether he's insane or whether he's sane, but whatever the case, he should not be let back out of the where he can hurt more people. Okay. Now this is a very interesting exchange between, we're talking about the fake news, right? Well, Morning Joe is one of the ones that went and met with President Trump, and I believe might be a part of the awakening because the left is listening to people like Bill Maher. They're listening to people like Joe Scarborough. So let's just play this out, and you're going to see, Schumer do anything but give any praise to President Trump.
Here's how we ought to get out. No, hold a second. You got to answer my question first. Yeah. Is it a good thing that Iran, and I think you would agree with me, epicenter of terrorism in the world since 1979, is it good that their military infrastructure is being degraded to the degree that it is? Yes or no?
It's you can't, because it's a premature question. What is going to happen in the next several months?
No, I can ask that question.
Well, you can't separate.
No, I can't. So you have a military side of it. I can show you my chart, but I think I threw it away. You have the military side, you have the political side. I'm simply asking on the military side, is it good, regardless of whether we agree with going in or not, is it good that Iran's military infrastructure has been seriously
And again,
degraded?
I have to tell you, Joe, first, you can't, what's going to happen 3 months from now? Is it worth it? What's going to happen? Will the world economy collapse? Will something happen even worse? Will the whole energy infrastructure of the world go up in smoke? So you have to, when they do it without planning, when they do it without understanding where they're going,
Senator,
where they're going,
But
I don't think it's fair.
It's a trick question.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Let me answer the question for everybody in America. The answer, yes. It's good that the terrorist regime, their military has been, and capabilities have been degraded radically. The question, Mike, though, is political. It's the political question.
No.
What is the political impact? What's the impact in the Straits? What's the impact in the region?
Joe, in all due respect, if you ask the American people, if you have the choice of degrading the military structure in Iran, but having gasoline be $6 a gallon, and our economy falling into a deep recession where millions lose their job, what do you think of
Senator, you're not listening to me. That's the political side.
No, it's not political.
Okay.
It's a consequence, just like Mika said.
All right, why don't we talk about the Yankees, because you're not following me here.
I am
with all due
following you.
respect.
I just don't agree with you.
No, what you don't understand me. There's a big difference. I would say that most Americans would say it's a good thing that it's degraded. Would they agree that we should have gone to war, Mike? I think most Americans, you look at the votes, they don't want this war.
Okay.
They don't want this war, but there is, it's something that I think the Democrats should be, I think it's something, with all due respect, Democrats should be clear about. Iran has tried to kill Americans since 1979.
Okay.
Two things, hold on. Two things can be true at once. It can be good that Iran's killing machine has been degraded. At the same time, the consequences may outweigh the good that come from that.
Okay,
It's okay
look,
to say that.
I don't disagree with you.
I don't disagree.
You know, the fact that the leader Khamenei is gone, no one regrets that. The fact that Iran has less ability to create military trouble is no one disputes that. But you have to look, I don't think it's political, to be very honest with you. It's the consequences, the military, the geopolitical, the economic consequences.
I'm saying geopolitical.
You got to let me finish.
You just said what I was saying. The geopolitical consequences.
Right, it's not just
the
economic consequences. Right. Again, let me ask the question again. If you ask the American people, and you had the package together, because we don't know how bad it's going to get, but we know it's pretty bad now. I think most of them would have said, no, we shouldn't have gone to war. And by the way,
most of them have said that.
Yeah, we shouldn't have gone to war.
Right.
And I'll tell you this, if they would have done it right, if they would have voted, if the Republicans would have voted with us on the War Powers Act, all these questions would have been asked ahead of time.
Right.
Instead of Donald Trump's willy-nilly, one day yes, one day no, this is our reason, that is our reason.
Right.
So I don't think the question can be taken in just one slice.
Right.
Yeah. All right, I think we found some common ground.
Maybe we go to break now.
Interesting. Interesting that that Morning Joe is pushing back against the deep state when Morning Joe is one of the deep state and is one of the compromised. But if he's pushing back like this against Schumer, the question is, what was that meeting all about? Did Trump let him know what we have on him and say, we'll let you know when we need you, right? Because this is not something that we that is true. Like so much of the stuff you're doing is Operation Mockingbird, and we're not going to allow that. So we'll let you know when we need you to push back against some of this stuff. Now, I mentioned the two in the left media that met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. One was Morning Joe, and the other was Bill Maher. He met him at met Morning Joe and Mika at Mar-a-Lago. He met Bill Maher. So let's listen to Anna Paulina Luna on Bill Maher.
First question is for you. Do you think we are headed, Congresswoman, for a full disclosure and transparency about UAPs, which we used to call UFOs? I do. I mean, I think it was just this week. Didn't they start a website for releasing this information?
From my understanding, they're going to put it on the National Archives, but if they've booked the website, so I actually head up the disclosure task force in Congress on declassification of federal secrets. And what I will tell you is
that's why you know so much stuff.
I'm a nerd. In all seriousness, there's some things that we can't explain. And there is a problem with overclassification, but also when you have duly elected members of Congress being denied access, that's a problem because we're supposed to be the check and balance on some of these agencies. And so you'll see some interesting stuff. The federal government will never come out and tell you what to believe.
I think they're here.
Well, there's definitely stuff that we can't explain.
I mean, I'm not
I'm
shy
still
about
searching
it.
for intelligent life on Earth. So I'll be I'm not into that.
Well,
I think we're in a big universe.
You may not be into that, but they're into you. Okay. I mean, whether you want to believe it or not, things.
Why do they always put the probes there?
Well,
if they're that sophisticated, can't they just like scan us?
But see, but if you want to be serious about it, there was an era where we heard a lot about probing. That ended. Because, I mean, we never heard about any of it before we got nuclear weapons. Right after the nuclear bomb went off in 1945. Suddenly the aliens were like, maybe we ought to pay attention to these people.
Well, there were reports of sightings and whatnot dating back into even, for many, 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 many centuries.
If you're talking about some of the stuff like we see in hieroglyphics and drawings,
I think
it could be, yes, it could be like they built the pyramids. That's true.
Well, I think that there's a lot of theories, but based on what we're seeing evidence-wise, there is one specific agency where multiple members of Congress, to include myself, received a briefing from. All of that information will be declassified, and the stuff that we saw in that briefing we can't explain.
But I mean, if I could get back to the anal probing.
Odd topic.
It seems like there was a time where they needed to do that to find out about it. Like so many people have this almost the exact same recollection. Now, maybe it's some psychological phenomenon that we don't realize, but people independently seem to have this kind of vague memory, and they lost a little track of time. Maybe it was the GHB. I don't know. But it seemed like the aliens were trying to find out what makes these people tick. Who are these humans? And then I think they got that information. And in the last 10, 20 years, it's not been that. What it's been has been very, very serious people. I'm talking about military people who are constantly saying, we see things we cannot explain.
Actually,
either China has a weapon we don't know about, which is unlikely, or it's just something you're going to have to tell me what it is.
What we've seen in the briefings, and I actually asked this question to Secretary Clinton, as she was actually going to, had she won her election, be in charge of disclosure and actually releasing some of this information. And she thinks that the American people, I think this is one of the most bipartisan things in Congress currently, and bicameral in the Senate as well. But we should be able to release the information that we have specifically pertaining to this and let the American people decide what it is. Look, some of it is balloons, some of it is drones. And then there's a portion of it that we can't explain where you have credible people from all walks of life confirming it. And I will tell you, based on the evidence that we have seen, there's something there.
And credible people, not just in the military, but in government, including Democrats.
I was struck by what President Obama said, and I agree with it. The vastness of the universe is such that the arithmetic makes it pretty likely.
Right.
And the vastness of the universe is such, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to cross paths. And I think that's also true. I mean, it seems to, I'm a skeptic, but I like what you're doing, Congresswoman. I think put it all out, let people decide. I'm a skeptic. Maybe you can do.
Well, Bill, I think this gets into a deeper, if you have time, listen to the Joe Rogan podcast I did, but this gets into a deeper discussion on where you're at spiritually. And I think there's just a lot that we have and can't explain. But look, my biggest concern and why I got involved is because I had the Department of Defense at the time tell me that we were not allowed access, and I have the highest clearance possible. So if you have a duly membered elected member of government, not just myself, but other members being denied access, you have this aspect of then who's really in control. If we're writing the checks, if you have the Pentagon failing audits, being denying access, this is a problem. And so there is this aspect of government transparency going back to how do we actually fix this country, and you have to start with transparency.
Okay.
We have Bill Maher allowing Anna Paulina Luna to come on and speak like this, and how disclosure is so important. And like what we've gotten from the Democrats and the media on Epstein and how they're calling for the release because they think Trump is in them, we also have the left media now being okay with this kind of disclosure. But again, these were the two people that met with President Trump: Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, and Bill Maher, three people. And so I think it's important for us to take a look at that and see how they're kind of changing their tune a little bit about some things. So I want to take you to, this was a very, a very interesting post from President Trump that I want to take you to, that he did the other day that we haven't had a chance to talk about. And it's this post where Robert Mueller died. And he says, Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. President Donald J. Trump. Now, here's what's so important about something like this, right? It's this way in which President Trump talks about somebody in such a way that we say, wow, that was pretty harsh, right? But when you think about what Robert Mueller did in his activities, okay, and we're going to get to that in a little bit, but I want to share this with you. This is the timestamp. Wait a minute. No, it is not. Hold on one second. I'm sorry. Let me go to this timestamp. It was much better, but basically this timestamp of that post about Mueller takes us to previous was deleted, curious, plus, 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 and plus. Those are the three sides of the triangle, right? Saudi Arabia, Rothschilds, and Soros. Okay. Now, Mueller was placed there in order to find dirt on President Trump. And that he was placed there by Soros and Rothschilds in the sense that they are still in control of much of the deep state, where Saudi Arabia was purged in what was the year? 2017 was when Q posted this, November 7th, 2017. And so I believe President Trump is telling us that, you know, Robert Mueller is a part of the deep state. Now, what's significant about this is that what Robert Mueller has actually done, and this is a great post by Lindsay Bruce. This is Lindsay Bruce here, Gypsy Queen. She follows me, writer and patriot, right? Robert Mueller harassed an innocent man, Peter W. Smith, until he committed suicide. Robert Mueller ruined hundreds of lives based on a fraudulent case he knew was fabricated by the Democrats. Robert Mueller drove families that had zero involvement with Russia into bankruptcy. Their children even received death threats. Spare me the pearl clutching over Trump's response to his death. Robert Mueller was heartless. Okay. So it's kind of like my friend said the analogy the other day, and that I thought was really good. It's like there's a dog that's killing a baby, and in the process of saving the baby, you kill the dog, but you are being lambasted for killing a dog. Meanwhile, you saved the baby. Now, I'm as big a dog lover as anybody. I don't want to see dogs being killed, but this is the misdirected compassion that is being used in order to draw ire, draw criticism from the left and from the media that Trump is well aware of. Okay. And so for him to say something like that about Robert Mueller is going to bring into light the Russia collusion hoax and the biggest treason ever in our country against a sitting president and against a sitting president's cabinet, against the executive branch. This was trying to take out one of the sides of the triangle of our government, which is executive branch, judicial branch, and then, of course, legislative branch. And one of the things that I've been telling you for quite some time is all three of those sides of the triangle have to fall. And what we're seeing with the executive branch, we're seeing President Trump coming out with information about Obama and the treason that Obama was a part of with the Russian collusion. And so at any rate, it was very much it's very much important for us to see the corruption at the executive branch with Biden, with the auto pen, with the lawfare against President Trump, with the Obama administration, and how they were, when you think about it, both of them were false presidencies, because Obama was never a U.S. citizen. He got, I don't even need to open up that can of worms because you all know that by now. And then Biden was never truly the president. The inauguration was not shot live, so he was not, sworn in on the time that he wanted. And I've also shared with you that everybody that was at that inauguration, think about this: Schumer, Pelosi, Sotomayor, what do you call it? John Roberts. All these people, all these top people, Biden, Harris, Trump didn't go, right? But they've all capitulated because they all obviously were there on a day that wasn't the inauguration. They were all there knowing that this is a farce. So it's important for us to understand when all this stuff is going down and we're getting like really discouraged at how long it's taken, or the arrests that haven't occurred yet. It's important for us to understand that they've already capitulated and that this is a white hat script playing out so that we can wake up. And you and I are awake, but how many in our families are still not awake? And so all this has to be exposed. So we're seeing the executive branch being exposed with Biden and Obama. Okay. Also, by the way, Clinton. Okay, with the Epstein files, right? And then you've got the legislative branch, which is, we're seeing how ineffective Congress is We're seeing that they don't want to pass the SAVE Act. We're seeing that they don't want their, they want to expose everybody in the Epstein files, but they don't want to be held accountable for their sexual misconduct in Congress. So they voted against that. So we're really seeing the legislative branch falling, and especially those that are tied in with the Epstein files and are tied in with Arctic frost, crossfire hurricane, et cetera, like Adam Schiff and so forth. So we're really seeing the legislative branch being exposed. Now let's talk about the judiciary. Again, Sotomayor and John Roberts were at that inauguration. So we know that they have capitulated. We know that they were a part of a scam inauguration. Okay. Then we see Justice Barrett and John Roberts vote for with the Democrats, voting against President Trump's use of tariffs, which didn't stop President Trump at all. And I said this to you. I said that the Supreme Court is not going to vote in favor of President Trump on this. I told you that months and months ahead of them actually voting to stop President Trump's use of the tariffs in which he was using them. And I told you that ahead of time because I know that these people have already capitulated. So any vote that they vote on is under control of the White Hats. But you asked the question, I'm sure, well, why would they vote against President Trump? Because the judicial branch needs to be exposed, and all these Soros controlled, funded, DAs, AGs, and judges are being exposed. People are tired of these murderers being let out. People are tired of these murderers being allowed an insane plea, not guilty for murdering a woman and her unborn child, by the way, furthering that a fetus is not a human being argument that the Democrats pose so that they can justify the murder of unborn children. So do you see how these three branches of the government must be exposed? And the only way to expose them is to see their inaction, to see that they aren't America first. They want to cut funding to ICE, and in the process of cut funding to TSA. And President Trump's like, okay, we'll send ICE in to help TSA. Problem solved. Problem solved, right? But if we don't see these things happening on a daily basis, then we're not going to expose those levels of the government that aren't working for you and I, but rather are working in the behest of the deep state, the foreign influence that has, that they are, committed to, right? And let's go to James Wood's post here. And James Wood said, the last cabal of conspirators against a sitting American president were hanged together on a single gallows. The statement was clear. You act together in treason, you shall die together in ignominy. AG Pam Bondi, you have a current referral regarding Russiagate. America awaits. Now, this is something that was seen by 700,000 people, reposted by 19,000 people. Okay, and these are people that understand what James Woods is talking about here. He's talking about the current ongoing investigation of Russiagate, Crossfire Hurricane, Arctic frost, and how this was all a part of a grand conspiracy to take down and take out President Donald John Trump. And all three were a part of this. Congress was a part of it, so the legislative was a part of it. The executive branch was a part of it, and the judiciary was a part of it, with these judges like Boasberg, and with these DAs like Fannie Willis and Letitia James, and so forth. So this is all a brilliant way in which this is all being revealed. Okay. Now I want to share this with you. This is very interesting. This was reposted by Elon Musk. Let me pull this up for you. Okay. Just want you to check this out. Now the reason why I share this is because I had another conversation with my friend this weekend about the flat Earth, okay, and about all the people that were involved in this this fake psyop that we are this minuscule speck in the universe, this vast universe, which was also part of the talking points that Bill Maher was talking about on the UFO disclosure. And so if you realize that, if you look at Genesis and you see how Genesis spoke about the firmament, the dome, in many texts of the Bible, it's called the dome that's overhead, and the, you know, here, let me pull this up. But let me play this. Let me play this for you while I look this up. Here we go. So President Trump, Elon Musk had a repost of this. So 46 million people have seen the video I'm about to share with you. 46 million people. Elon Musk says, I had dinner once with a top physicist and a top computer scientist and asked what they thought the probability was that we were in a simulation. They answered simultaneously at 0% and 100% respectively. So the top physicist said 0%, top computer scientist said 100. It was like a double slit experiment, but with humans. So let's listen to this, John.
Of simulation theory often point to video games as a way to explain, if not prove, that our reality is artificial. In a video game, the only data that is rendered is what the player sees or interacts with. If you're playing a video game and there's a car or building a mile away, that entire object isn't rendered. The game engine only renders the bare minimum of information to make the object look real. A distant building is rendered as just a few pixels, not that complicated. As you get closer, the engine renders more details, but still, it's just a facade. The engine doesn't bother calculating what's inside the building until you actually go in. The game engine always knows how much data to send you and doesn't bother with anything else. If we live in a simulation, it would make sense that our reality is rendered the same way. And we could test this.
Wait, what do you mean we can test this?
Specifically, we can use the double slit experiment. Here's how it goes. If we fire particles in a straight line at a screen, after passing through a single slit, we would expect to see this clumping pattern on the screen. If we try this with a wave, we expect to see a pattern like this, where particles are most dense in the middle of the screen but radiate outward, similar to the clumping pattern. When we add a second slit, it starts to get fun. When the waves pass through the double slit, each slit creates its own wave. When those waves intersect, they cancel each other out. That creates a pattern like this. It's called an interference pattern. So particles passing through two slits create clumping patterns. Waves through two slits creates an interference pattern. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Good. If we fire electrons through the slit, we see the clumping pattern as expected. An electron has mass, so it's a tiny bit of matter. So if we fire electrons through two slits, we should see two clumps. But we don't. We see the wave interference pattern. This shouldn't be happening. What's going on here? For years, scientists assumed that the electrons were colliding with each other, causing the wave pattern. But in the 60s, the experiment was modified so that only one electron at a time was fired through the slits. There was no way the electrons could interact with each other. Yet we still see an interference pattern. Scientists wanted to see what was causing this, so they added a detector to observe electrons as they pass through the slits. That's when things go from weird to paranormal. As soon as the detectors were installed, the interference pattern went away and the clumping pattern returned. Take the detectors away and the wave interference pattern is back.
But that's a different result to what we had earlier. So here's the last bit of sneakiness that we can play with atoms. Surely now, we're going to get to grips with it. Leave the detector there, but just very quietly go and unplug it. Don't let the atoms know that you're not spying on them. Run the experiment again. Now, if you can explain this using common sense and logic, do let me know, because there's a Nobel Prize for you.
It's as if the particles are aware they're being observed. Then physicist John Wheeler had an idea. He called it the delayed choice experiment. How it works is photons are projected through the double slit, but the detector is not activated until after they pass through the slit, but before they impact the screen. Photons were emitted as waves, passed through the slits as waves, but when the waves were observed before hitting the screen, they suddenly behaved like particles again. Still don't think there's an intelligence at work? Well, what Wheeler's experiment showed is that even though the electrons started as waves but behaved like particles after being observed, at the moment the decision to observe them was made, the electrons recorded themselves as having passed through the slits as particles. The electrons changed their state by going back in time.
I personally find that I gravitate more towards the information theoretic point of view and believing that the universe that I exist in is a very good, high-quality simulation.
Now, this experiment is happening on a table in a lab, a very short distance. So what happens when we observe light coming from vast distances, like, say, a galaxy 100 million light years away? If light from a distant galaxy is projected through the double slit, it creates the wave interference pattern. But if we push those photons through a measuring apparatus to observe them, the wave again collapses all the way back to its source. This is called retrocausality. Simply by choosing to observe the photons this way, they reach back through time 100 million years and alter their state on the other side of the galaxy. But like a video game engine, it only does this if we're looking. Even though our universe is full of galaxies, those galaxies may not actually be there. If we're living in a simulation, then stars and galaxies could simply be projections, and only when we get up close would those projections become more detailed. This is an excellent way to save computational resources. And because we're stuck with the hard limit of the speed of light, getting to far-off places is really difficult. Limiting the speed of light is a useful rule to have in place. Quantum mechanics like the double slit experiment and quantum entanglement only make sense if there's a program at work, because only the program can ignore the laws of physics.
So this is very interesting, and this is something that, very, very smart people on this earth have very much looked into. Now, this man is approaching this as if there's, galaxies out there and millions of planets and so forth, right? But let me take you to what I think to be one of the most important, proofs of firmament for those of you who, really respect the Bible, whether you're talking about King James Version or others. Let me just read for you this Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. So that means water on top of the firmament, water below. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And God called the firmament heaven. And again, in some of the texts of the Bible, firmament is literally the word dome. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called the seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself, meaning the seed was in the fruit after his kind. And God saw that it was good. In the evening and the morning were the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Now I also got a very amazing reading, if you will, of my chart of when I was born and what was happening with the planets. Now, the planets, many astrologers think the planets are big, orbs out in space. I do not. And if you do not, that's fine. But I'm sharing with you my perspective on this. And so this is very important because he put the stars in the firmament, which is the dome, okay, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. Now, I do not agree with the Christian viewpoint and many religious viewpoints that astrology is not good. That is the devil's work. I don't believe that at all. I think that is part of the conditioning and the brainwashing of humanity to not truly be present and aware of the things. I mean, she said, oh, you've had a rough 3 years, haven't you? Just looking at my chart, not knowing anything about me. And I said, yes, I have. Lost my father, lost my brother, broke up a relation. My relationship broke up. I lost a friend, lost another friend, all within the past 3 years, right? A very difficult time for me. She said, to be honest with you, looking at your chart, I'm surprised you're still here. And she said, this been a very difficult 3 years. And I'm going to say that you probably had another difficult time about 28 years ago. And as I started to do the math, she said, no, about 30 years ago. And I go back 30 years, and that's when I lost my business of 8 years and had it was the worst time of my life up to that point, and had a complete shift. And that's when I got into making movies. So at any rate, that's just a side note, but it's in Genesis as well. Okay. So, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, obviously the sun, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. Now, this was, this is two lights now. Now, when you go out under a full sun, it's warm, and then you go into the shade, it's cooler. If you do the same under the moon, which we've been told is reflecting sunlight, this should be the same except less severe because it's a reflection of the light and the warmth of the sun. However, the exact opposite is true. When you are in the shade of the moon, it is warmer than if you step into the light of the moon. Okay? So And God set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. So that's why I believe that they go around within the firmament. They go around, and when we're seeing a sunrise, we're actually seeing something very far away coming closer to us, and then the sunset going farther away from us to the point where we can no longer see it. Okay. So, so this is truly very, very interesting. Talked about making the creatures of the earth, and that that man would hold dominion over all those creatures. And then he says, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Okay. And so, and he said, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. And so this part I've always went to and always said monotheism came upon much later in our lives. There were many gods that people acknowledged. And also, this idea of a sole God is one that is very recent, and especially in Christianity. But God, God said, "Let us make man in our image." Who is our? In my opinion, there's more than one God. That there are other divine beings. Many say it was, it's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. But, that's just speculation as well, right? And so could it have been more than one God, or certainly, a God that had other divine beings that he said, let us make man in our image, right? So, yeah, so Moonbeam says astrology is like a thumbprint of your energy when you were born, and it progresses and changes as you age. I agree. But it's but there, the things that she was able to tell me just by looking at my chart was very, very interesting, right? And Mary Drinks Beer says, I just tested that theory, Dave, and it's true. It is cooler in the moonlight. Exactly. Which means that it is its own light, and it's a cool light. And we know the difference between like a warm bulb and a cool LED bulb. A warm light is much, yellow light is much warmer, and a cool light is much cooler, right? So that is, yeah. BP says, when God says that he's referring to his angels, his sons, he does everything through his angels. That is described later in scripture. Well, that's what I mean. It's like, these are still divine beings that look like us, act like us, because God said, let us create man in our image, right? So yeah, so this is very, very interesting. That because and here's the thing: if you create, if these beings created this firmament and so forth, like we're told in Genesis, right? Or God created that, but he created man in the image of the beings that he was surrounded by. Then it takes a great deal of mass. And that goes to the double slit experiment, that it's particles that create the mountains, that create the trees, that create the bushes, the leaves, the grasses, the flowers, the rocks, right? The river, the water, that's all mass, and that is a very, very significant like undertaking. But if it's created as a simulation, well, that's like sitting around and putting together a video game. So very, very interesting, this whole thing. And I just, I wanted to share that because, 64 million people have now seen that, seen that video that Elon Musk shared about the world being potentially a simulation. And the double slit experiment does indeed back that up, that when we perceive it, it is mass. But when we don't perceive it, it is not mass. It is a frequency, right? Or not particle, right? So very, very, very interesting stuff that I thought was important to share there, and also to bring about just more questions, because one of the things that we know for sure is that we have been lied to about a great many things. And why would they not lie to us about our very existence and how we are, meant to, figure things out. Now, the reason why I think things are really, I mean, there are many reasons, many things are pointing to what is occurring right now with Obama. Tomorrow's Delta is this, and it is basically Trump painting over the presidency of Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, and it takes us to this post here from the Hill. Justice Department sides with court ruling Obamacare unconstitutional. Right, and that was from 2019. So when we look at this and we realize that, oh my gosh, here's a Q drop of tomorrow. And what I was just saying, by the way, and I didn't even look this up until after I said this, is that we're seeing the Biden presidency going away because Trump is reversing everything that was so harmful that was brought up during the Biden presidency. The auto pen, right? The crimes that were committed, the money that he got for him and his family from foreign interests, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and the very influence over the election that put him in that position to begin with is now all coming to light. So he's already painted over the Biden presidency pretty much. And here he is with a spray painter, or no, this is like a weed killer, actually. Like he's spraying that on Obama, and Obama's going away, and we're getting our country back, right? So I think we are going to be seeing something very, very soon regarding the Obama administration and its illegality against President Trump, and it's. Yeah. So at any rate, this is, and Num Garrett says, so our collective conscious can shape reality. And I believe it can. And I believe that this is one of the things that is going to allow us to see things very, very differently. Right. And so, yeah. Let's see, just seeing a couple of your comments here. So this is very, 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 I think, interesting for us to certainly, again, we have learned to question everything, right? We have learned to challenge everything. We mustn't stop with, we mustn't stop with things that we think should be untouched, because those are some of the most important lies of all that we should really make sure that we are, just aware of their ability to lie to us, and certainly their history of lying to us, right? Another delta for tomorrow is blind justice under the law will return to our republic. There is a reason why a sword is held. Okay, so this is the symbol of justice, of blind justice, and the scales of justice. But there is a reason why a sword is held. Now, who yields a sword but the military? And the only way forward is the military. And blind justice under the law will return to our republic, but it must be at the hand of a sword, right? This is very, very important, right? Yeah, this is coming. Justice is coming without question, right? Let's see. Crazy Mike from the desert. Dave, what do you think of Cesar Chavez exposing his evil coming decades later, and how quickly they're removing all of his statues and names of buildings? This is a great question, and what is being exposed, right, in these countries that are communist countries in our hemisphere, and with President Trump kind of taking the helm and saying, the Monroe Doctrine or the Monroe Doctrine, where we're going to start protecting space in our hemisphere, meaning the Western Hemisphere, that we are, all the evil is being exposed. Maduro has been, working with Tulsi Gabbard to expose all the people that have been paid for. By the way, let me share that I did share that post of Elon Musk, by the way, with the simulation theory, right? And so this is something that is very important for us, because the external influence of the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch must be exposed. And what better exposure than from the very people that were paying these people to do their bidding, right? To do their bidding, which is very, very interesting, right? Okay, let me take you to one other thing. Let's see. This is going back to COVID. Okay, this is and the mRNA vaccine. Valerie Ann Smith she said, study involving 1.7 million children has found that myocarditis and pericarditis only appeared in children who had received COVID mRNA vaccines. Not a single unvaccinated child in the group suffered from these heart-related problems. So we're seeing these kind of studies and reports coming out, and 5 million people have seen this post. Okay. And it says here we go. In the adolescent first dose versus unvaccinated cohort, among both adolescents and children, myocarditis and pericarditis were documented only in the vaccinated groups, with rates of 27 and 10 cases per million after first and second doses, respectively. All this is coming out, my friends. Okay, we will be vindicated in our not taking the vaccines, in us warning people about the vaccines. Okay, and this is and I wanted to take you to also to this post. This is from 40 Head. Mueller dies. This is right here. Okay. Mueller dies 7 years to the day after his case against Trump was dropped. Now think about that. What are the odds of that happening? Now look at tomorrow's 7-year delta, all about Mueller being a blockade to Trump's agendas in his first term. Now Mueller is dead, and tomorrow's delta, talking about Mueller, says blockade removed. Okay, and I can take you to, let me see if I can find that here. There we go. Okay. And by the way, tomorrow's deltas are also John Solomon. Trump Russia collusion story did affect an American election. The one Dems won in 2018. See my latest column. And 3190, without a blockade shield, they are left vulnerable, exposed. And then we see Obama losing his presidency with President Trump. And one of these says blockade removed, if I'm not mistaken. But let me take you back to that post. So this was March 22nd, okay? The countdown has begun, February 9th, 2019. And it says, Barr installed. House Democrats threaten subpoena of Barr Whitaker regarding declass, Supreme Court report, Huber, etc. House Dems use subpoena power to blank Acts 1, 2, and 3, spill plus 30. Q-proof, Dems desperate subpoena. Live breaking news, developing House Intel Committee Chair Adam Schiff says that the panel is willing to subpoena Robert Mueller to obtain a clearer picture of the contents of his report. Blockade removed. That's when it was, March 22nd. This is what I wanted to share with you. My apologies. Okay. Blockade removed. That was March 22nd. Okay. Now we're looking at tomorrow's delta of March 25th. And it says that without the blockade, okay, shield, they are left vulnerable, exposed. And it takes us to a story of the Hill. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Let me play this for you.
It's also a sad reminder of the lack of accountability that started to seep into the media and into Democrats that have gone out for the last 2 years, actually over 2 years, and accused the president, the United States president, of being an agent of a foreign government. Take a second and let that sink in. Take a minute and realize how outrageous and how serious and how malicious an accusation like that is. They literally accused the president of the United States of being an agent for a foreign government. That's equivalent to treason. That is punishable by death in this country. It's also a sad reminder of the lack of accountability
in this country, right? Punishable by death, right? So, I wanted to get to a comment I just said. Okay. Mizzo says the moon has no light. It's only a mirror reflection. Well, here's the thing. If it was a mirror reflection, then the light would be warmer than the shade of the moon because it's reflecting a warm light, supposedly the sun. Now, the other thing too, and I want to challenge you on this, I'm not going to say you're wrong, because I'm only talking speculation as well. But why do you say the moon has no light? Why can't the moon be a light? Right? And it certainly doesn't reflect the sun properly. Okay, because we see the moon and the sun's behind it. The sun's 93 million miles away. We see a full moon, and the light's coming from behind it. There are times when that's absolutely happened. I've actually taken pictures of that. So how do we know this? How do you know this? So we're all just speculating, like where we're at, how this all came to be, and what's going, how we're going forward, right? So I think we need to question everything, my friends. That's really where I'm coming from. I'm not telling you I'm 100% right. I'm telling you that that this is a way that we can move forward, really questioning everything that we think is important. Okay. Let me do this. Okay. Here we go. So there was a post that President Trump made. Let me see. Let me see if I can find this. Okay. Okay. So this is another thing that tells me that Barack Obama's, time is very short. Okay. This from that post that I showed you earlier about ICE going to be at airports to help our wonderful TSA agents, right? Now, if you look at the capital letter count of this, we go to Snedheads, we go to research the Q drops, we go to the capital letter counter, we go to the capital letter counter, we put all those capital letters in, and we come up with 52. And if we look at 52, November 2nd, 2017, review Barack Obama's financial disclosure when he submitted pre-Dem election campaign. What is the annual salary of a sitting U.S. president? What homes were just purchased by Barack Obama? How much did it cost? How does it reconcile? That's very, very easy questions, right? The annual salary of a sitting U.S. president, I think at the time, was at $500,000. And he's purchasing homes in the multi-millions of dollars, right? At the very most, he got $4 million. Okay. $4 million doesn't buy that compound on Martha's Vineyard, doesn't buy that place on Embassy Row in DC, et cetera, et cetera. What is the net worth of Pelosi? How does it reconcile? What is the John McCain Institute? Notice any patterns related to the Clinton Foundation. Where did John McCain obtain his surgery? Why is that relevant? What surgery did he supposedly have? How many days until he was back in Congress and sitting in the Oversight Committee? What is his net worth? How does it reconcile? What is Maxine Waters' net worth? How does it reconcile? You can play this game with most Dems and many Republicans. What does swamp refer to? What does money buy? Alice in Wonderland. So that's an influence. Alice in Wonderland leads us to Clinton Foundation and Saudi Arabia. Now, think in mirror, follow up to last post, return to comments regarding Pelosi and John McCain. Some of us refuse to say his name for a reason. They're both mentioned in this. That's why Q says think mirror, because these are linked together. This all has meaning. Everything stated, big picture stuff. Few positions allow for this direct knowledge. Proof to begin 11-3. We all sincerely appreciate the work you do. Keep up the good fight. The flow of information is vital. God bless. Okay. There were no deltas for today, by the way, just FYI. All right. So this is all very interesting. It's all pointing towards the treason, and it's all going to come to light. And I hope, folks, with all the negative and all the things that we're experiencing individually, I hope that you're seeing the trajectory of what's happening as being a very, very good thing, because I certainly see it. And I am very emboldened and excited about not just this time that we are alive, but a really great future for our children, for our grandchildren, for our friends, our family, you know, and we're going into a very, very beautiful place, in my opinion. Folks have been on 2 hours now. I'm going to wrap it up, and I'll be back on tomorrow night and through the week. I think tomorrow night and Thursday. Then I'll figure out what I'm doing for the weekend. But I'm excited to be back with you, and I'm excited that that we are seeing what we're seeing play out. It's a very, very exciting time to be alive. Thank you for those who were here tonight, and those who shared, and those who thumbed up, and those who donated to support the work that I do here. Thank you all very much. And you know, it was a week away, and no money flows when I'm not doing content. So any donations are absolutely appreciated and welcomed to continue the work that I do here, and because I'm back to full time here, and so I thank you for your support of this independent journalism and this independent view, and supporting Q and an anon such as me, who has been a huge proponent of Q and Trump, Q plus, this entire time without fail, and keeping a steady hand over this whole situation. So I greatly appreciate you all. Much love to you, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Be well.